Hello everyone, my name is Audie Ratliff. You are watching the 40th episode of the Ratliff Mandolins weekly production diary series, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode where we're going to be discussing all of the jigs and fixtures that we need to build for the two mandicellos that are going to be in our upcoming batch of mandolins. As you know, when we build a mandolin, we have to have a form. That's this thing right here. It has to have some sort of what we call spreader bars. The sides, or also sometimes known as the rim of the instrument, is bent, placed in the mold, and as the blocks and everything are glued into the instrument, those sides are held in place by what is known as a spreader bar. So we're going to have to build exactly the same sort of apparatus for the mandicellos, only on a much bigger basis. So that's what we're going to do. Now, like I said, both of these mandicellos are from period instruments from the Gibson factory. Lloyd Loar signed instruments, both of them. This was a 1924, although it looks like a guitar, believe it or not, it was a mandicello. 1924 K5 mandicello, and I don't remember the year on this one, but this is the mandicello that we're all more familiar with, I think, the one that's shaped like a mandolin. And as you can see, the molds are already built. I built those this week, and specifically I stopped and shot video for every little step on this one, and so I've stitched all those together. It's about 2.5 minutes or so, and we're going to watch this mandocello form being built right now. So stick with us, and we'll be right back as soon as this video is run, and we'll discuss the spreader bars and the binding jigs that we're going to have to build to be able to make both of these mandolins. So let's run that video now. Now, essentially, the same procedure was used on this one. I have a couple of little points that I'll talk about here. This one, I have cut a flat here so that we can put our clamps on here for this block, and also an angled thing here so that we can clamp this block in when the time comes. But first we have to build the spreader bars, and I have already glued up the waste from the cutouts here, the cutouts. I've already glued up the waste of this mandolin shaped mandicello, and it's in the prop bar deck right now, and I'll show you that. On both molds, of course, we are just going to use the waste material to build the spreader bars, and that's what we're doing here. For the one that's shaped like an F-style mandolin, we are gluing up those 3 pieces of waste material. As you can see, it takes virtually every prop bar stick that I have to make that glue up job. When that one's done, then we're going to glue up the same thing out of these waste pieces, and hopefully by the time it's all said and done, we'll have enough material there to work with and build our spreader bars for these molds. Now, speaking of other things that we need, we also have to have something to hold these instruments still while we wrap our binding. So let's walk right over here to the binding stations, and I will show you how the mandolin ones work, and then we'll discuss what we're going to do to build the mandicello ones. Let me explain to you what you're looking at. This is our binding station for mandolin. It is the place where we take the string and wrap back and forth to tie the binding on when we're gluing the binding on the mandolin. And if you want to look back through some of my older videos, there's actually some really good shots of this thing in action. It is a piece of ductwork that is filled with concrete, and in the top of that, while it was still wet, I shoved these anchor bolts down in there. These are the kind of anchor bolts that you bolt your sill plate to the top of your block wall when you're building a new house. And this anchor bolt sticks out about 2 or 2.5 inches out of the top of that concrete, and they're on this binding jig itself, there's some holes drilled, and it is bolted down to this whole concrete filled base, held steady by these strapping irons. The mandolin fits down in there, not going to go very far, and with these millions of 1/4 inch bolts that are driven into the side, we can wrap the binding back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with our string, and that's how that all works. This way right here we can do the tops. We take this thing off, flip it over, and we can do the back. Both of our mandicello jigs are going to be built the same way. And by the way, there's an added benefit to all this jig building and bender building and all that sort of thing. If you'll recall the Gibson guitar that we have here for repair, that we are going to have to bend a piece of wood binding, stain it up to match the guitar. We now have a bender that we can bend this binding on so that it will match. And this guitar almost exactly fits this mold. Not quite, but almost. And so I'm going to guess that this guitar will fit on that binding wrapping station, and so the way we'll have a way to hold this thing in a good way to glue that binding on when the time comes. So like I said, it's an added benefit in more ways than just one that we've got these 2 mandicellos going through in this batch of mandolins. So I'm going to close off this video for this week. Thank you so very much for watching. Hey, we do this each and every week. Give us a share and like, and hit the notification bell. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully we will see you again next week. So, thank you. I'm Audie, by the way, from Ratliff Mandolins, and we will see you then.